Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of our Shelly swimsuit sew-along. Today we're going to be sewing up the bottoms as well as our back bodice pieces. To start, we're going to place our front bottom main piece with right side up, and then with right sides together we'll match up the front bottom lining piece. So they'll stack right on top of each other with right sides together, and then go ahead and pin or clip in place along the top edge. I'm just going to go ahead and use clips. And you'll notice that the bottom lining is a bit shorter than the bottom main fabric. That is intentional, so don't panic. It will be a little bit longer. So go ahead and baste that lining in place. With the wrong side of your main fabric facing up, we're going to place the front waist elastic along the top edge of the front bottom. The elastic shouldn't have to stretch too much to fit. It should just be a very, very slight stretch. If it seems like you're having to stretch it a lot in order to get it to fit, I would double check your pattern piece just to make sure you did cut out the correct size. Go ahead and attach the elastic with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just a reminder, I know we've already gone over this, but just another reminder that you can use a stretch stitch, a zigzag stitch, or your serger. If you decide to use a serger, make sure that you're not cutting any of that elastic off. And then if you're using either a zigzag or a stretch stitch, just make sure that the stitching doesn't go across the entire elastic. At this point, you can opt to understitch your elastic or top stitch, but you do want to make sure that you also remove any of your basting stitches. Once you've had the chance to either top stitch or understitch if you choose to do so, and remove all your basting stitches, you're going to match up your side seams of the bottoms. So go ahead and pin or clip those side seams in place, and then we'll just run a quick basting stitch along each side. Our next step is to attach our front bodice pieces to our front bottoms, and that way we can treat this whole front side as one piece moving forward. First, match up your notches, then pin or clip the rest of those side seams in place where they match up. Do the same thing for the other side, and then we're going to run basting stitches along both of those side seams. Just for reference, the rest of this video is going to be constructing the solid back option using the burrito roll. So if you're doing the cutout back, or you've opted out of the burrito roll and you just are okay with the exposed seams, then you will skip some of these steps and I would defer you to the written tutorial. Our first step for the solid back is going to be matching up our back main pieces with right sides together. We're going to pin or clip along the center back seam, and then we'll go ahead and baste in place. Then go ahead and repeat those same steps with your back lining pieces. Next, we're going to lay our lining pieces on top of our main pieces and then pin those in place. You can see I have my lining pieces with right sides together and then my main pieces with right sides together. Stitch the lining pieces to your main pieces along that center back seam, and then go ahead and remove all basting stitches. This is where it starts to get a little bit more challenging, but I promise you can do it. We're going to take our back pieces and open them up. The center seam is now enclosed. Your front bodice should be laying with right side up, and then we're going to place the back right on top of the front. So facing up, facing towards you, should be the right side of your lining fabric. We're first going to enclose the side seam of the suit. So to do this, we're going to start by rolling one side of the back. This is both the main and the lining toward the center seam. Once you have that rolled to the center seam, go ahead and clip or pin this part together. Next, you want to take the lining for the back bodice that is not rolled up and fold it out of the way. You don't need to roll it, I just folded it toward the center to get it out of the way. With right sides together, we're going to match the back main piece to the front main piece at the notch and then pin or clip in place. Then pin or clip the back to the front along the rest of that side seam. If you want, you can go ahead and baste this side seam in place. After you've finished basting that side seam, you're going to grab the back lining that is not rolled, not clipped, and fold it out, sort of pulling it away from the front piece. So the back lining, the back main, and the front should all be face up at this point. You can still see that I have the right side of my suit rolled and clipped in the middle there. We have not done anything with that just yet. Now we need to burrito roll the front piece. Start at the side seam of the front and then roll the front toward the back until you can see that basted seam. Grab the back lining piece, and with right sides together, we're going to match that back lining to the front along the basted side seam. Go ahead and pin that in place and then stitch it together using whatever your preferred stretch stitch is. If you're using a zigzag or a stretch stitch, I would trim the seam allowance in half or so to reduce the bulk in that seam. If you're using a serger, you can go ahead and trim some of that off since there's no elastic here in the side seam. Turn the suit right side out, and then you will notice that one whole side seam is now attached and enclosed for a nice clean finish. You notice any stray basting stitches like I just did, this is a great time to go ahead and pull those out as well. It's good to pull them out before you try on the suit because otherwise you can hear those stitches pop and it can be a little concerning, wondering if you've ripped something. Now, with our front piece facing up, we're going to fold just the back bodice main over. With right sides together, match that back main only, not the lining, to the front at the notch and pin in place. Pin or clip the rest of that side seam together, and then you can go ahead and baste. You can see that this side of my lining is not attached yet. So I'm going to run a basting stitch along the side seam, and then we will finish the rest of our burrito roll. Take the back lining that is not attached to anything yet, and we're going to fold it over the front. So I just roll the front of the suit out of the way just a little bit, and then I'm going to take that back lining piece and fold it over to the front with right sides together, matching that back lining piece to the front lining along that entire side seam. I'm going to clip it in place, starting with the notch and the raw edges on the end, and then I'll pin or clip along the rest of the side seam. Stitch that seam in place, and again, if you're using a zigzag or a stretch stitch, go ahead and trim that seam allowance in half to reduce the bulk. This is really the best part of all of day 3, where we get to turn the suit right side out and admire that both side seams are now attached and enclosed. You can do one last check for any basting stitches you might still need to remove, but other than that, we are all done with day 3. We'll see you back tomorrow for day 4. See you then.